Mistake number 1, not providing enough sunlight. Most gardeners who fail at tomatoes spend the entire season blaming their soil, their watering schedule, or their fertilizer. Here's the uncomfortable truth. None of that matters if the location is wrong. Tomatoes need a minimum of 7 to 8 hours of direct sunlight every single day. Not filtered light through a tree canopy, not partial afternoon shade, direct sun. Because tomatoes are fruiting plants, not leafy greens. And fruit development demands enormous photosynthetic energy. Without enough light, the plant stays alive but redirects all energy into leaves and stem. The result? A beautiful, green, bushy plant that produces almost nothing. Cherry tomatoes can tolerate 5 to 6 hours and still perform reasonably well. But heirlooms, beefsteaks, and any large fruiting variety? Give full sun or expect disappointment. Before buying a single seedling, spend one full day watching the garden. Track where the sun actually lands, not where it's assumed to land. Pick the best spot first. Every other decision either builds on that foundation or fights against it. Mistake number 2, not supporting the plant at all. There's one support mistake that silently destroys tomato harvests every season, and it has nothing to do with whether a cage was used or not. It's about which kind. Walk into any garden center in spring and thousands of flimsy conical wire cages are stacked at the entrance. They're cheap everywhere and the wrong choice. The cone shape is widest at the top and narrowest at the base, structurally backwards for a plant that gets heavier as it grows. By midsummer, the whole structure collapses inward. An indeterminate tomato can reach 6 to 10 feet tall and carry several pounds of fruit. A conical cage was never built for that job. Better options: cylindrical cages with wide bases, DIY cattle panel cylinders bent into shape and zip-tied, the Florida weave for row planting, or simple 5 to 6 foot stakes tied loosely to the main stem. The rule: get support in place within the first few days of transplanting, before roots establish and become vulnerable. Mistake number 3 is overwatering. Watering a tomato plant every single day feels like attentive gardening, responsible, like giving the plant everything it needs. It's actually one of the fastest ways to guarantee a poor harvest. Overwatering pushes tomato plants into vegetative overdrive. Bigger leaves, thicker stems, denser foliage, all at the direct expense of fruit production. Worse, it causes flower drop. Blooms fall off before they can ever set fruit. Waterlogged soil also displaces oxygen from the root zone, suffocating the system the plant depends on. Here's what surprises most people. Tomatoes produce more fruit under mild water stress. When the plant senses water isn't guaranteed, its biological priority shifts toward reproduction. More flowers, more fruit. Deep, infrequent watering also forces roots downward, building a more resilient plant overall. The practical rule: roughly 1 to 1.5 inches of water per week. Water deeply every 2 to 3 days. Push a finger 2 inches into the soil. If it still feels moist, hold off. If dry, water slowly and directly at the base, never from above. Mistake number 4, poor spacing picture. Late July, the garden looks lush and full, and reaching in to find a single tomato means pushing through a tangled wall of foliage from 3 different plants. Nothing is getting enough light. Nothing is getting enough airflow. Disease is already moving through the canopy. That chaos has a simple origin: planting too close together. Crowding creates compounding problems. Root systems compete for the same water and nutrients. Everyone loses. Dense, overlapping foliage traps humidity and creates the warm, moist microclimate that fungal disease thrives in. Lower leaves get shaded out entirely. Determinate varieties need 18 to 24 inches between plants with rows 4 feet apart. Indeterminate varieties need 24 to 36 inches between plants and rows 5 to 6 feet apart. That spacing looks wasteful when staring at a 6-inch seedling. By August, every inch is filled. Plant fewer plants spaced correctly, and they will consistently outperform twice as many crowded together. Mistake number 5, not mulching. There's a single step that locks in moisture, suppresses weeds, regulates soil temperature, and stops the most common tomato diseases from ever reaching the plant. Most gardeners skip it because it looks like decoration. It isn't, it's infrastructure. A 2 to 3 inch layer of mulch around the base of each plant does something no spray or treatment can replicate. It breaks the infection cycle before it starts. The majority of devastating tomato diseases, including early blight and septoria leaf spot, live in the soil. Their only route onto the plant is through soil splash during rain or watering. Mulch intercepts that splash before it ever happens. Beyond disease, mulch retains moisture between waterings, reduces drought stress on fruit development, and keeps root zone temperature stable during summer heat spikes. Straw, wood chips, shredded leaves, or compost all work. Apply after transplanting. Keep it pulled a few inches back from the main stem to avoid crown rot. Mistake number 6, planting upright instead of sideways. Every instinct says to plant a tomato the same way every other plant gets planted. Straight down, upright, roots in soil, stem above ground. That instinct is wrong. And correcting it is one of the highest leverage adjustments in the entire growing process. Tomatoes carry a rare biological ability. Buried stem tissue grows roots. Any section of stem placed underground develops what are called adventitious roots, additional root mass that dramatically expands the plant's capacity to absorb water and nutrients. The method is called trench planting. Instead of digging deep and going upright, a shallow horizontal trench is dug. The plant lays on its side with only the top 4 to 6 inches of growth above the surface. The entire remaining stem gets buried. Within a few days, the plant corrects itself toward the sun, and the buried stem is already generating new roots along its full length. The outcome: a plant that is better anchored, better fed, and meaningfully more productive than one planted the conventional way. Mistake number 7. Inconsistent watering and blossom end. Rot. There's a black rot that appears on the bottom of perfectly healthy-looking tomatoes, and almost every gardener misdiagnoses it. The most common fix given? Add calcium. And yet the problem keeps returning. Here's why that advice misses the point. Blossom end rot is technically a calcium deficiency, but at the fruit level, not the soil level. Most garden soils already have adequate calcium. The real problem is transport. Calcium moves through the plant dissolved in water. When watering is inconsistent, dry for days, then suddenly soaked, the plant's delivery of calcium to fast-developing fruit breaks down. Blossom end cells, furthest from supply and growing fastest, collapse first. It is not a disease, it doesn't spread. Future tomatoes on the same plant recover completely once watering stabilizes. The fix? Consistent deep watering, thick mulch to buffer moisture swings, and drip irrigation where possible. Adding gypsum at planting, at 1 pound per 100 square feet, provides a steady calcium reserve as backup. Mistake number 8, over-fertilizing with nitrogen. The plant looks perfect. Deep green leaves, thick stem, dense, vigorous canopy. Everything looks right. Then the season ends, and there's almost nothing to harvest. This is the nitrogen trap. Nitrogen drives vegetative development. Leaves, stems, green tissue. Tomatoes respond to it dramatically, but fruit production runs on a completely different signal. A plant flush with nitrogen has no biological pressure to reproduce. It just keeps growing. Fruit is a reproductive strategy, triggered when conditions feel uncertain. When everything is too comfortable, that urgency disappears. The fix is simpler than the damage. Start with compost before planting. Use slow-release organics, pelleted chicken manure, feather meal, or bone meal. Mid-season. A compost side dressing or occasional fish emulsion maintains nutrition without pushing vegetative overdrive. Feed the soil. Let the soil feed the plant. The goal is fruit, not the most impressive-looking plant in the garden. Mistake number 9, watering overhead and spreading disease. Experienced gardeners who do everything right, proper spacing, consistent watering, correct fertilizing, still watch the same diseases return every single season. Blight creeps from the base, leaf spots spread through the canopy. The culprit is something that happens every time the garden gets watered. Overhead watering seems harmless, but 2 things happen every time. First, wet foliage creates the exact conditions, warm, moist, prolonged, that fungal pathogens need to colonize. Early blight, septoria leaf spot, and late blight all exploit this window. Second, water hitting bare soil causes splashback. Soil particles carrying live pathogens become airborne and land on the undersides of lower leaves. This is the primary infection pathway for most soil-borne tomato diseases. Silently, every single watering. The University of Wisconsin Extension identifies keeping foliage dry as a core disease prevention strategy. The fix: root zone watering only. Drip lines, soaker hoses, or a hose directed low at the base. Water in the morning. Layer mulch as a soil splash barrier. 2 small habits, and the diseases that came back every year simply stop showing up. 9 mistakes, 4 levels, 1 pattern running through all of them. Beginners lose their tomatoes to the fundamentals. Wrong location, wrong support, wrong watering instinct. Casual gardeners lose them to the steps that felt optional. Spacing, mulch, planting method. Intermediate gardeners lose them to invisible biological processes being misread. Calcium transport, nitrogen signals, and experienced gardeners lose them to a single repeated habit that looked harmless for years. The arc from beginner to master isn't about doing more. It's about understanding deeply enough to act with precision instead of effort. The mistakes are mapped, the reasoning behind each one is clear, and the next growing season doesn't have to repeat any of them.